so much, Miss Cook. What a lovely introduction. And I'm not insulted about that sixth book. We'll get that to you. Uh, yes, let me actually start by just sharing my screen and see if I can figure that out. Nope, I didn't. There it is. Okay, terrific. Well, thank you, Miss Cook. Thank you, Miss Ben David. Thank you to Mr. Walk, whose impressive dance moves I was enjoying. That was terrific. Thank you to the trees Miss Lauren mentioned, because I wrote my notes on paper that came from trees. Thank you to Ben Franklin for electricity so that I could do this. I'm going to stop now because I could go on, but I will get to other parts of my talk. But as you can see, as Ms. Cook mentioned, I am a big fan of this idea of saying thank you. And it's what my parents told me to do. And it is a polite thing to do, as your parents might have said. But I think it's more about more than being polite. I found one of the secrets to happiness. And not that I'm happy all the time. I mean, I still struggle. I am cranky, grumpy, gloomy a lot of the time, especially now. This is, as you might have noticed, not an easy time. But without gratitude, I would be in much worse shape during this lockdown. So I wrote a book about gratitude that I want to talk to you about. But this project was actually a long time coming. It was influenced by two other books that I wrote. The first was a book called The Year of Living Biblically. I wrote that several years ago. And that came about because I grew up in a very secular home. I say in the book, I'm Jewish, but I'm Jewish in the same way the Olive Garden is Italian. No offense to the Olive Garden, which has great breadsticks. But I had no bar mitzvah, no Passovers, but I was interested in religion and in my tradition. And I had a kid. I wanted to know what to teach him. So I thought one way to learn about the Bible might be to live it, to study it from the inside out, to live as they did in biblical times and walk in the sandals of our forefathers and foremothers. So I bought a stack of Bibles and I wrote down every rule, every piece of advice that you could find in the Bible. As you know, this is a very long list, not just the 10 Commandments. This is hundreds of rules. And I wanted to follow them all without picking and choosing to see how they affected my life, what made my life better, what made my life weirder, what made my life worse. So I got the list. I got a board of spiritual advisors, of rabbis of all denominations and ministers and scholars. And I went through and decided I'm going to follow the famous ones, like the 10 Commandments and love your neighbor. But I also wanted to follow those that don't get as much publicity. So the Bible in Leviticus, it says that you should shave the corners of your beard. And I did not know where the corners were. So I just let the whole thing grow. And as you can see, by the end, I had quite some topiary on my chin. I was called Gandalf, ZZ Top, the whole, ZZ Top may be an old reference, but I was called all sorts of things. I spent a lot of time at airport security. So that was one rule I had to follow. And it's interesting, Ms. Cook mentioned a rule that I had almost forgotten about, but you are not allowed to eat fruit from a tree unless that tree is 5 years or older. So I remember I would have to call up, the apricot farm or the apple farm and say, yeah, I'm just interested. Can you tell me how old the tree is that this apricot came from? And they were like, what are you wasting my time with this crap? But, it was in the Bible. I felt I should at least try. The Bible said that that you should stone adulterers. And I thought I should at least try. And I was able to stone one. I'll tell you quickly how I did that. So I was getting really into it. So I was actually, I would dressing the part. I had my robe and my sandals. The sheep was not really a part of it. That was just a rental day sheep for the book cover photo shoot. But I did sometimes go out looking like this. And I remember I was in Central Park. I live in New York. And a man came up to me and said, "Why are you dressed like that?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to follow all the rules of the Bible, from the 10 Commandments to stoning adulterers." And he said, "Well, I'm an adulterer. Are you going to stone me?" And I said, "Well, that would be wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity." And I took out a handful of stones because I had been carrying them around for weeks, hoping to run into an adulterer. And they were very small. They were like pebble size. I didn't want to hurt anyone. And he was very aggressive. He grabbed the stones out of my hand and threw them at me. So I felt an eye for an eye was also mentioned in the Bible. I could throw one at him. So that's how I checked that off my list. And now at the end of the project, I was, I did shave my beard and I put away all my stones, but I actually took away really some profound lessons from the experience that have changed my life even to this day. And one of them is just the beauty of the Sabbath and taking a day off, Shabbat. The rituals, I love the rituals now that I never did as a kid, but Passover. And one of the biggest is this idea of gratitude, which is a big theme in the Bible, a big theme in Judaism. Our very name, Judaism, comes from Judah, which means to thank. Now, another lesson in the Bible was the idea that we're all connected. We're all one big family. We're all cousins. And this, at the time of the Bible, was actually a radical message. This was revolutionary, because the ancient Egyptians said, "No, we're not all one family. The pharaohs are gods. We're deities, and you people are not." But the Bible said, "No, we're all equal. We're all humans. We're all family." So that brings me to the second book I want to quickly mention today, and that book is called "It's All Relative." And that book began a couple of years ago. I got a very strange email from a man, and he said, I've read your books and you don't know me, but I'm your 12th cousin. And I thought the next sentence was going to be, "Please wire $10,000 to my Nigerian bank." Like, thought I knew what was happening. But he wasn't a scammer. Instead, he was part of this group of people who are trying to build the biggest family tree in history. And it's not really a tree, it's a forest. It's not hundreds or thousands of people, it's millions of people all connected on the same family tree. It's called the World Family Tree. You can find it on a couple of different websites, and it's got 180 million people in pretty much every country in the world. And I was blown away by this idea. I mean, part of me was like, do I really want that many new relatives? I've got some relatives I already have that I maybe don't want. But the bigger message was this idea that we are all family. You've heard that, since you were kids. Some of you still are kids, but this is making it concrete. This is showing you how we are connected using DNA, using the internet. And I just loved this idea. And one of the addictive things was you could see how you're related to almost everyone else on Earth once you get on these websites. So for instance, there's Barack Obama is my cousin. He is officially my aunt's my fifth great aunt's husband's father's wife's seventh great nephew. So that is actually how we are connected. So very close. But I was able to figure out how I'm cousins with all sorts of people. And it was a good entree. I would say, "Hey, I'm your like 8th cousin. Can I take a photo with you for my book. So I got to meet Daniel Radcliffe, who's great, who is half Jewish, by the way, and a wonderfully man. That's Olivia Munn and oh my God, John Legend's Chrissy. I can't believe I forgot my cousin's name. Chrissy, is it Chrissy Teigen? Did I get? No. Oh, that's, well, in the chat you can,
Teigen.
it is Teigen. Okay, thank God. All right. Well, there's John Legend. He's got an easier name to remember. And I went on Conan O'Brien to talk about how we're all related. And it was, you know, a very profound way to see how we are all interconnected. And I thought one way to really drive this home was for the book. At the end of the book, I thought, why not throw a global family reunion and invite all 7 billion of my cousins to a family reunion? And we did not get 100% turnout, which is probably good, but we did get 10,000 people, 4,000 in New York and 6,000 in other ones all around the world. And it was a very strange event. We had, I remember, a lot of speeches. And at one point we had a priest, a rabbi, and an imam on stage. So it was like, you know, set up to a joke. We had Sister Sledge came and sang "We Are Family," which is an old song, but you might know it. Miss Ben David and I were talking. You might know it from bar mitzvahs. So it was something I was obsessed with. These two big themes. There's gratitude and connections, and I wanted to incorporate both in my life. And I found one ritual I thought would be helpful, and that was before a dinner with my family. I would say a little recitation. I would say, I want to thank the farmer who grew these tomatoes for the spaghetti, and the woman who sold me the tomato at the grocery. And my son at the time said, you know, Dad, that's fine, but it's also kind of lame because those people can't hear you. They're not here. If you cared, you would go and thank them in person. And I thought, that is a very interesting idea. That could be a good book. So he earned his supper that night. And I took him up on his challenge, and I decided to focus on one item, which was my morning cup of coffee from a cafe here in New York. My kids wanted s'mores, me to go around and thank them because they thought there would be more s'mores in the house if I did that. But I ignored them, and I focused on coffee. And it turned out it took me months. It took me around the world. This was when we could still travel. Because I discovered that my coffee would not be possible without hundreds of people I took for granted. So I started small, and I thanked the barista, but I went to South America to thank the farmers. But you also have to thank hundreds of other people. The trucker who drove the coffee beans to the store, and the trucker couldn't have done that without the road. So the people who paved the road. So I really took it wide. The people who designed the logo, who designed the lid. And I came to realize that everything in our lives, not just coffee, but everything requires an army of people. Biologists, architects, designers, inventors. And so that was it took about a year to go around and thank everyone. And it was a pain in the butt, but also it was wonderful. It was wonderful because you realize all that goes right and that we take for granted. So I want to end this by leaving you with 4 little lessons, little takeaways from my journey. The first is to fight the negative bias. And the negative bias is unfortunately part of human nature. We are very good at finding the 3 or 4 things that go wrong every day. And there's an evolutionary reason for this. And when we were on the savannah, it was good to really notice that lion or the poisonous mushroom. But now it can have really harmful effects on our psyche. So if I hear 100 compliments and a single insult, then what do I remember? I remember the insult. So this project was really good at reminding me of the hundreds of things that do go right every day. Even something like, getting in the elevator and being thankful that it came to the first floor, and being thankful it didn't plummet to the basement and break my collarbone, or little things about my coffee, like I learned a new word. It was Zarf, Z-A-R-F. It's the little cardboard sleeve that they put on the cup so that you don't burn your fingers. And I never thought about that, but someone designed that. Someone had to invent it and make it. Second lesson is to look up. I started my journey by thanking my barista. Her name is Chung, and Chung is a lovely, upbeat person. Big smiler, big hugger, at least before COVID. And I asked her about her life, and she said, it is not easy being a barista because you're encountering people in a very dangerous state, which is pre-caffeination. And Chung told me that the worst part of her day is just that people don't even treat her like a human being. They just treat her like a vending machine. They just put out their credit card. They don't look at her. They don't look up from their iPhones. And I realized I've done this hundreds of times. That is me. So I pledged, thanks to this project, that I would take 2 seconds when dealing with someone to actually look up and make eye contact. And those 2 seconds I find are so important to my sanity as well, just reminding me that I'm dealing with a human. So, and someone who has a history, who has a family, who has embarrassing high school memories. And by the way, for those of you who do drink coffee, there is another more selfish reason to be nice to baristas. But I learned that one trade secret is that if you're really rude, some baristas will give you decaf without telling you. So there's a little tip. All right, number 3 is fake it till you feel it. So I would wake up in my default mood, which was often grumpy, sort of more Larry David than Mr. Rogers. And but I would force myself to call or write or visit people in person to thank them. And I thanked the coffee roaster, the health inspector, and I remember I called the woman who does pest control for the warehouse where the coffee beans were stored. And I said, I know this is a little odd, but I just want to thank you for helping to keep the bugs out of my coffee. And she said, well, that is strange, but thank you. I don't get a lot of positive feedback. And she described it as an anti-crank phone call. So sort of the opposite of a nasty out of the blue phone call. And I will say, honestly, not everyone loved it. Some people were like, what's going on? Is this a pyramid scheme? Why are you calling me? But most, like this pest control woman, were very happy. And the amazing thing is, it didn't just affect them, it affected me, because I was acting, even if I was feeling grumpy, I would act as if I were grateful. And eventually, if you do an action for long enough, your mind catches up. So I would start to feel grateful for real. And this is one of the big lessons from all of my books, is actually, if you act as if you fake it till you feel it, is a very powerful way to go through life. And there's a quote I love from the founder of Habitat for Humanity. He says, it's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than to think your way into a new way of acting. So sometimes it's better to start by changing your actions and your mind will follow. This is actually a very Jewish lesson. There's a phrase in Judaism, deed before creed, which is basically the same idea. And speaking of Judaism, I really was taken by surprise by how integral gratitude was to Judaism, since I grew up a very cultural Jew, but I didn't know the deep roots of gratitude. As I mentioned, the word itself, Judaism, comes from thank you. There are prayers of thankfulness, so many prayers of thankfulness. The first words observant Jews say in the morning is a prayer of thank you. I love that there's a meta prayer where you're thankful for gratitude. You say thanks for the idea of gratitude. So I love that. So my final lesson today would be this idea of 6 degrees of gratitude. And this, what I mean is every stop on the trail would yield a dozen, 20 other places that I could thank. So I went to the mountain town in Colombia, South America, to thank the farmers. And it's a family-owned farm with 8 brothers and 1 sister. And they showed me how the coffee beans are grown, which are in these little cherries, and they have to mash them up. And that machine that they use to mash the cherries was made in Brazil. So they couldn't have done it without that. And the pickup truck was made from parts from all over the world, like including the United States. So they said that they couldn't do their job without hundreds of other people. And the point was, it doesn't take a village to make a cup of coffee. It takes the world. Now, I'll just end there and open it up for questions, but I would just want to say that I am very grateful to go meta. I'm very grateful for gratitude and how it changed my worldview. And I encourage all my friends and colleagues to try their own gratitude trail. It doesn't have to be coffee. It can be a light bulb or a pair of socks. And you don't have to spend 6 months traveling the world. It can be a very small scale, small gesture. You can send a note to the designer of a logo you love, or look a cashier in the eye. Even as an author, I love getting little thank you notes from someone, even if it's like 3 words, read your book, liked it. I guess that's 5. But the point is that doing these gratitude trails can be easy and life transforming. And I will end by thanking you for listening to my story, and thanking, did I thank Steve Jobs up front? I can't remember. Steve Jobs, but also Steve Wozniak, because he co-invented the Apple and doesn't get as much credit. So thank you all for listening to my story.